This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Our guest is a marketing leader, a thought leader, a content creator, a podcaster, and a speaker, as well as being an innovative expert with 18 plus years of experience helping brands grow by clarifying and amplifying their story. She's the podcast host of the show Humans and Brands. She's the founder of Reverve Agency. Lauren Douglas, welcome to the show.
Hey, Cal, thanks for having me.
So I always dig in with the first big question here of all guests. What is the single most powerful strategy for success in your agency these days?
The most powerful strategy for success is learning to understand the power of social media and particularly LinkedIn. I think that there's the top billion people in the world exist on LinkedIn in terms of like the most billion most successful people, and only 1% post weekly. So if you can have a posting strategy on LinkedIn that's real and authentic and human and not AI, I really think that is a winning channel for us, for our clients, but also for us to put our own messages out there.
And you're speaking kind of from a B2B marketing agency perspective, right? That's you. Can you just clarify what
Yeah.
kinds of clients you work with most of the time?
Yeah, we work with tech companies mostly, and mostly in the world of ad tech, martech. And so these are companies that are trying to get their messages out in front of others. So in our case, it's agencies and brands, media agencies and big brands. So you think the Unilevers of the world, or the Procter and Gambles, or the Toyotas, et cetera, like the top brands. These are generally people who are trying to get in front of them because those marketers own significant budgets. And so my clients are generally tech companies that are, looking to get in touch with that audience.
Okay. And you mentioned LinkedIn being a primary channel. How do you go about deciding what channels are the best for which clients?
I mean, I think that you have to have a strategy of repost and repackage everything all the time, constantly. So I really believe in the idea of finding a core message and then creating different channels and pushing that message across those different channels, and then chopping it up a different way the next week and pushing it out again, and then a different way the next week and pushing it out again. So I'm really big on the idea of like repackaging content. We always think that we said something once and so everyone knows it. That's not true. They probably no one remembers it. And so I like to use every channel. I like to use, and then a lot of it is like seeing what works for you and what sticks for a certain client. So like for some, they're really, really good in press and the journalists want to hear from them and they're keen to like get their stories. For others, they may not have as much news. And so maybe it's more about thought leadership and having their executives write points of view and put their POV out in market. And for others, maybe it's more about podcasting and social media. And so I really think you should use all channels interchangeably, but find what works best for that specific person.
Yeah, I think you'll see we probably will slice up this interview 5 different ways and publish 5
Yeah,
things coming out of it, trying to take some of your advice there.
I do the same thing. It's like I do a podcast and it becomes 3 social media posts. It becomes an audio format. It becomes an email newsletter. It becomes, and then by the way, a month later, I'll take all my podcast learnings and then I'll write another piece of content and then I'll do another social media post, right? So it's an always on trove of content.
Yeah, one of the first people I interviewed, she tried to design simple and effective marketing tactics for small businesses that, just don't have a staff to do a whole lot of work. And she basically explained it like she spends Monday mornings creating content and slicing it up and then scheduling publications for the next 4 days of the week. And like in half a day, she does the entire week's worth of marketing by slicing and dicing and repurposing. So
Makes sense.
as long as it's done authentically, it seems like a good way to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll do that. I'll sit down and I'll just crank out like 6 posts in a row and I'll schedule them out, and then I'm like good for a week. So I think that's a smart strategy.
Mm. And where do you find most of your business these days?
It depends. I think a lot of business is still word of mouth. And so, hey, I'm in a couple of different women's um, WhatsApp groups. So people will be like, hey, I'm looking for a marketing manager, or hey, I'm looking for a PR agency, or hey, I need help with my executive media training, or hey, whatever, right? And so we kind of help each other out in those chats. So I think that's one way. Another way is, I think, just again, word of mouth, and like people start to see, oh, this executive is showing up on stage. They're in the press a lot. They're doing amazing stuff with their social. Who are you guys using? And then that executive will be like, oh, we're actually using, Lauren's agency. And so I think a lot of it is still word of mouth, but I'm trying to of course be out there in, write articles and have my opinions and points of view published, and also use social media, so but I do think that, like, it's hard, like, I don't know about you, but I get a million inbox messages all the time on LinkedIn that are like, "Hey, Lauren, we can help you with your ROI." And it's like, I don't even know who you are yet. Like, you you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of, it takes a long time to, like, build that relationship with somebody, and it's not gonna happen just off of a LinkedIn message.
Yes, you kind of segueing into my next question, which is kind of the issue of quantity versus quality. And it's one thing to, post something on LinkedIn every day, but is it going to be any good? Does anybody really care about it? Is anybody going to read it? Is it going to help you in any way? So, like, how do you go about
Yeah.
helping clients figure out how to effectively tell whatever their message is so that people actually care?
It's an obsessive focus on others, and I think that's really hard for people sometimes because we have an obsessive focus on our company or our business or our thing or our product that we've launched, and that is a surefire recipe for disaster. The only way you can have a POV that anyone cares about is if you make it about them. And so I always tell people your content has to do one of 4 things. It has to educate, entertain, engage with people, like kind of get them engaged, or it has to inspire. And those are the only, and if it doesn't do those 4 things, can it, trash it. It's not worth your time to even put it out.
And so, do you have a process you go through to help distill out a good message from clients? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I do a lot of, it's almost like corporate therapy where it's like, okay, what should we even be talking about? It's like, well, that takes a lot of work to understand. Okay, sitting with the founder, what what did you start with? What do you do? What are the when clients have come to you and said, "You guys are amazing, you helped me do X." What are those cases that they've come to you? What is at your core? What's inside of this organization? Like, every organization has or should have, a mission, vision, and values. Most of the time, those are just sort of created and nobody ever thinks about them again. But if you're really, really clear on what your vision is and what everyone should be working towards and what kind of organization you are, like what kind of values you espouse and how do you actually like operationalize those values inside of your walls, now you're getting to a point where you're like, okay, now my core message aligns to all these things that are inside of me. I mean, it's the same thing as like a human being, right? If you're creating your own personal brand on wherever, what do I believe? Who am I talking to? What matters to me? It's the same thing with a company. And so you really have to get to that like base level of who you are. And then you can start to build your messages and your thought leadership and your editorial calendar and where you're going to speak on stage, because it's all coming from that place where it's authentic.
Yeah, I can see how, company strategy and values need to be directly aligned with marketing. Because I guess if you try to market something that you are not, in reality,
Yeah, it just becomes fluff and nobody believes it. And the employees don't believe it. And so then it's like, who are you doing it for?
the other thing I'm seeing is, I think there was a tendency to want to put out perfect looking content. And now there seems to be a tendency to just put out authentic content. It might not look perfectly. It might not be like professional
Yeah.
produced, but
Yeah.
authentic, and that's okay.
I think that's right. I mean, the highest performing assets on LinkedIn are selfies. And if you look at TikTok, like the most famous TikTokers are people just pointing a camera at their face. And so I think that's 100% true that It's more about authenticity than it is perfection.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I don't know much about it. I'm kind of live on LinkedIn, so some of these other
Yeah, I
more
get that. But
consumer type challenges or channels I just don't know that much about.
yeah, and it's a real time suck. So don't go down the path because then you'll lose an hour every day.
I don't even think my kids are on TikTok, believe it or not. They spend a lot of time
That's
on
surprising.
YouTube and video games, but maybe they're on
Mhm.
TikTok. I'll have to figure that out. Anyway, all right. So we're talking about what you do to help clients kind of tell their story and get the word out. But I'm curious to know kind of you and your firm, what your goals are over the next 3 to 5 years. And if we sat down, 3 or 5 years from now and looked at your firm and tried to measure success,
Mhm.
what would a great 3 to 5 years look like for your firm?
I mean, I would love to have a one of the problems I think you probably know this is when you're starting out of business and you're small is and when you only have a few clients, if you lose one, it's really detrimental. And so I would love to be in a point in the next 3 to 5 years where, on the agency side, like you live or die by like clients come and go. And that's just kind of part of it. And it's not necessarily anything to do with you or what you did or whatever, but like that's just kind of part of like it's baked into the cake. And so for us, it's absolutely being in a place where like if you, instead of losing, let's say if you have 3 clients and you lose one, you've lost 33% of your business. It would be great if you had 10 or 20. And then if you lose one, you've lost 5 or 10% of your business and you can make that up. So I think that would ultimately be the goal.
And you're still in the early years, right? You've been doing
2 years.
Reverve for 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
I'm curious your how you're navigating kind of there. You have this push and pull. Like initially, you want to sign up anybody who's going to pay you because you have expenses, bills to pay, and you want to build a business. So you kind of are very flexible and who you might be willing to work with in the first couple of years versus being very strategic, being willing to say no, turning away revenue, turning away profit when you're kind of desperate for revenue and profit because you don't have much. Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
like, how are you navigating that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had to deal with that too much where it's been such a misfit that recently I had somebody come to me. They had found me on social media and said, "Hey, we want to RFP you." And it was a influencer brand that was like a CPG brand that was going to be sold in Walmart and really heavy in the male influencer space of like 20 to 24-year-olds. And I was just like, this is so far from my world. I don't think I'd be the best person for you guys. And so I just told them up front and they really appreciated that. Um, but I think you take on more when you're in the early stages than you should, and then you learn lessons. We just learned recently that we need to have a spike fee in our first month because we spend so many hours on calls with executives and understanding the platforms and diving into the technology and meeting with all of the teams that like we were overextending ourselves in the first month every time we would pull in a new client, first 2 months really, and so we were like, "Okay, well, now we've learned that lesson," right? And so I think you start to learn these lessons as time goes on where you're like, you learn it through hard work.
So, is there anything that you learned over the last couple of years that you wish you knew 2 years ago? Like, what kind of lessons might you give yourself if you had a do over?
Yeah, I just actually read this book called The Dip, um, and it's all about the idea that, like, it's gonna get hard. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, if you want to be the best at something, it's gonna be hard. If you wanna be the best athlete, there's gonna be, like, 10 years or the best singer or the best whatever. There's gonna be this period where, like, you're performing for no one, and that really helped me to keep going because, like, I was just like, "Well, maybe it isn't working. Maybe I don't maybe I can't make this work. Maybe and you start to sort of really question yourself. And so I think reading that helped me to be like, no, like if it's worth it, like being hard is okay. Like that's nobody ever no good story ever started with like, oh, she just started this company and then it went really well. Right. Like that's not how it works. Like you start a company and then you learn lessons and then it's hard. And then you think about quitting 100 times and then like maybe you make it. Right. And I think that like having that perspective has helped me a lot.
I look back and I think some of the most challenging clients, I'm in the accounting and bookkeeping and finance space now, and I was in the IT space earlier in my career, and I just think back, like that some of the clients that maybe drove us a little bit nuts were also the ones that forced us to get better at what we do and decide kind of what it is that we actually do and what we are willing to say no to and kind of
Mhm.
force us to, improve our game a little bit. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
The first couple of years, you get some challenging clients and maybe you wouldn't take them on again, or maybe you would, but they force you to figure out, what we want to be when we grow up, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's right.
I'm curious, I'm in the accounting space, so I'm curious how you go about managing your internal bookkeeping and accounting and finance at your business.
I mean, I'm not great at it.
Well, you're great at
Um,
marketing. You can't be great at everything.
exactly. I ended up hiring an accountant last year because I was just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And my husband was like, are we just going to have an insane tax bill because you don't know what you're doing? And so to avoid that, I hired an accountant. So, um, luckily I am covered, but it's like, it's hard. You don't know what you're doing and you don't know the tricks and the secrets and the things that it takes a long time to learn that stuff.
What kind of reports or metrics do you like to get to keep a handle on how your business is performing?
Um, I mean, to be honest, like I don't get tons of reporting because it would be me reporting to myself. So I just like kind of look at my QuickBooks or look at, kind of go in and look at how things are going, but I'm I don't do a ton of reporting. I should, and maybe that's year
One
3.
of these years, I can maybe help you with that. Sure.
One of these years. One of these years.
So what excites you about the future as you're building out your firm?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for um I really like helping people figure out their voice. I really like helping people figure out their message. I really it makes me happy when they're like, doing well. And I had a client last year that was like it was, at first it was a struggle to get her on stages and get her on podcasts and all these things. And then once we started getting her out there, she started getting noticed and seen. And then people started reaching out to her to speak on 3,000 person stages. She was getting flown to Saudi Arabia, or not Saudi Arabia, to the Qatar to speak and like to all these different things. And so like I love that part of like helping people with their businesses. And so I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most is really like making an impact, like a measurable impact that I can see.
So how do you get people on stages in Qatar?
I mean, it was like, they came to us, right? They had seen the podcasts that she was doing. They had seen her on stage before. They had seen her message, and they came to us and said, "Hey, would you wanna speak at this?" And she was like, "Should I go to this?" And I was like, "Yeah." So, yeah,
Cool.
I think it's a fly my perspective is it's a flywheel. Once you start you gotta start somewhere, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and it's like, you gotta, "Okay, well, I wanna be on stage." It's like, "Okay, well, you need to, like, start speaking on little things. You need to start putting yourself out there. You need to have a point of view. You need to you need to start writing," right? Like, there's things you can do that start to create this flywheel, and then the flywheel grows. But again, back to my point about the dip, you gotta keep going with it because if you stop, then it's like, you have to get through the hard parts.
I had a dip. Um, we used to spend a lot of money at my company on marketing, and then we just weren't seeing an ROI on a lot of what we were spending money on. And then we kind of overcorrected and stopped spending a lot of money. And then it looked like things were still good because we were living off the flywheel that we had running. And then a couple of years went by, and then we started to see the dip in leads and lead quality because we had not been keeping the wheel moving, and we were just gliding. So then
Mhm.
we had to pick up again.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Isn't that funny? It's funny because it's like people I don't think realize the value of marketing until it's gone.
yeah. So let's go back to the days of little Lauren, and your career and milestones. Did you think you'd be running your own firm one day?
I don't know. I don't think I had that level of foresight, to know, like, to be like, "Oh, one day I'm gonna be a business owner." No, I think I was just too busy, like, being young and dumb in New York City.
And you work at big companies like Citibank and AOL, places like that, right?
Yeah, I was at big companies always, always, always. And then the last company was around the 250 mark. We had about 250 people, and then that's when I started on my own. So to go from really, really big companies to being on your own is like it's night and day.
So if there are people listening to this who have W-2 jobs and they'd really like to build their own agency, but it's kind of intimidating to give up a steady paycheck to go into the unpredictable world of entrepreneurship, what would you tell them?
I would say start things while you still have the income. I think that we all think that we don't need the income, and then 6 months into starting the new thing, you're like, "Oh shit, that income was really nice, and I really relied on it." So I think don't quit quickly, quit slowly. Start to put things in place, start to have conversations, have your first couple clients lined up, or at least the conversations to get those first couple clients. And then you can, once you've got a little bit, like you've got line of sight to some money, then you can go. I just think sometimes people like underestimate the like that sweet, sweet W-2 cash.
Yeah, and everything takes longer than you think. And even if you sign up a new client, it might be a couple months until you get that check in the mail. And
So I think it's
Congrats.
3 to 6 months.
Right.
And I'm a small business, and it's 3 to 6 months. So like if you're a bigger business and you're going for big contracts like that, it could be a year. And so again, I think you have to really you gotta be patient.
And how are you approaching staffing your engagements? You have a network of contractors you use? Are you trying to build a
I
W-2 model? Like,
do.
what's your staffing approach?
Eventually, I think I'd like to build a W-2 model. Right now, I just use contractors, and I have some full-time contractors that are with me, all the time. Um, But and then we have people that we'll bring on for projects, especially if we're doing like video content for somebody, or if we're doing social media management for somebody for a few months while they have like an interim, a person leaves and they need us to do it, run it in the interim. Like we'll do that for them and we'll bring somebody in. But right now just 1099s.
Okay. And when you're not working and doing great things for clients, what do you like to do for fun outside of work?
Well, I'm a cyclist, so I do a lot of biking when it's nice out. I love hiking, so I like to go on hiking trips.
So you're in New York
Um,
City, right? So
yes,
how do you go cycling in New York City? I'm be scared about that.
you go into Jersey. So yeah. So there's a solid like 8 miles on either side of your ride that you have to get to New Jersey, so you get to like nicer cycling. And same thing with hiking. It's hard from here. You have to take a 2-hour train to get to trailheads. Um, but I don't know. I still like living in New York, so I don't want to move yet.
I had my fill of city living for 2 years after college, and then I moved out to the suburbs, and I don't think I could handle living in New York City at this point in my life, but
Yeah, I get
I'm
that.
sure it's got its benefits, and a lot of people love it.
And it has its perks. It
Yeah.
has its perks for sure. Where do you live?
I'm in Acton, Massachusetts, about 20,
Okay, cool.
25 miles west of Boston. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's where
Nice.
we're based. So I can cycle out my driveway, and the street I live on is a little
Nice.
bit busy, but it only takes me a few minutes to get into some quiet back roads and not have to worry about traffic. So that is nice.
Nice. That's great.
You mentioned that you've attended Burning Man. So I
Yeah.
need to ask you about that. So how
Okay.
many times have you gone?
I've gone 5.
Okay. And I don't know anybody who's actually attended, or at least that I'm aware
Okay.
of. So like, how do you go about attending Burning Man? What's the process like?
No, it's a good question because it's like you wouldn't know. You kind of like you need somebody to sort of shepherd you a little bit, or at least give you some information, or at least like invite you, or because if you're just kind of going in blind, you don't really know what to expect. And it's hard, it's you have to buy a ticket, you have to figure out your camping situation, you have to figure out if you're going to be in a tent or an RV, and then you have to figure out if you're going to be, in a camp and like sort of in a community. Um, and then it takes about, I don't know, anywhere from like 6 to 12 hours to even get into Burning Man. Like you're in line in the gate, moving, inching up. And so by the time you get there, it's like taking you so long to get there that it's like wow, I can't believe, I can't believe I arrived.
Yeah. And so my understanding is this temporary city that gets erected every year in the middle of a desert. Is that right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
what are the facilities like? Do you like, can you bathe, or it's like you just go there in a tent for a few
Yeah.
days, or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. You can, I mean, a lot of camps set up showers and set up plumbing and things like that. So we did this year. So we had a shower. And there's porta potties. So they're cleaned out daily. So like perfectly fine bathroom situation, no issues there. It really is a city. Like there's police officers, there's rangers, there's medic, there's a hospital there, there's a post office. Like it really does sort of turn into this to the city.
And how did you get connected originally with Burning Man?
Just friends had said, like, do you want to go to this thing? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And then you're just like, okay. And then you go and you're like, well, I guess I, you know, I I didn't know I was a lifer until last year, and last year I was like, "Okay, well, I'm a lifer now," and so I got a storage unit in Reno, and now I keep my things there, and now I'm I'll go back, as much as I can.
That's great. That's great. Maybe
Yeah,
when you're get off the nerve to try to check it out, we'll see.
there you go, there you go.
Um, and so when you're working with clients, we bring it back, bring the discussion back to business a little bit. When you're working with clients, do you tend to be the only agency that the clients work with, or are you working with big companies that may, select different agencies to support different things for them?
Yeah. We mostly do PR for our clients, PR and marketing communications. And so generally we're the only PR and marketing communications firm that they're working with. They may have people that they work with like on paid media or creative or things like that, but usually we're the only, comms agency.
Okay. And do you tend to, partner with other agencies? I wonder if there's any chance to partner with any other listeners in the audience or
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. No, that would be amazing. We'd love to. We partner with some partners in Europe because we don't sit in Europe, and so if a client is like, "Hey, I really need a global strategy. Who do you have in the UK? Who do you have in France, et cetera?" So we can partner across borders. But yeah, we always are open, and we'd love to partner if anybody. We do a lot of, like I said, PR and comms, social media strategy, things like that. Like, how are you telling your holistic comms story? And then we do some brand identity and some brand strategy and things like that, the mission and the vision stuff that I mentioned. So yeah.
okay. And you mentioned when we spoke earlier um, about the importance of building a personal brand, not just the kind of the business brand, but the personal brand of the founders or the owners. Like, how do you think about integrating personal branding with the business?
I think it's the most important thing today. I think, especially in the world of B2B tech brands, which is where I sit, they're like corporate brands, no one cares. They just don't. Like if you have and the numbers prove it. So if you post something from your corporate page on LinkedIn, you're gonna maybe get like 5 to 10% impressions. If you post something from like the CEO's personal page or sales leader's personal page or something like that, you're gonna get like 3 to 5x that. And so people just don't care what brands have to say. And even the platforms themselves will deprioritize that content because they want the brands to pay for it. And it really is all about the person. And so I think my strategy for a lot of my clients is you have to enable your sales team to be out there and be your army of like thought leaders, telling stories, telling their own personal points of view as well. And I think for every person, like you should it would behoove you to be posting and to have a thoughtful content strategy so that you can, if you ever want to get that new job, like how are you going to get it? You're going to be known. Like people are going to come to you. How are you going to get that new client? People are going to come to you. How are you going to get that new opportunity to be on a podcast or to be on stage or whatever? You have to kind of be out there. So to me, I think it's increasingly becoming more important, especially as AI takes over.
And so, how do you think AI impacts that?
I think AI is gonna impact a lot of like the content that we read and consume. And I think people are gonna have like their smell test for what's paid content or, advertiser content or what people are like, like corporate content, I think they're going to become even more turned off by that.
I mean, I still feel like I can often sniff out if an article was written by AI, but AI is getting pretty good.
Oh,
It's
for sure.
getting harder and harder to sniff that
Oh,
out, though.
I still think it's bad. I think it's bad.
Mm.
I can sniff it out immediately. So yeah, I think that, having and being a human being with mistakes and messing up and saying I think that that's going to become even more important in the world of AI.
Cool. Well, if folks are interested in getting in touch with you because they liked what you've said or think you could help, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah. So my personal email is Lauren at Reverve. It's reverve.xyz. And then our website is reverve.xyz. And we're on LinkedIn too. So yeah, you can find us anywhere.
Is there any particular story behind the name Reverve?
I just like the idea of like reverberations, and sort of like your comm strategy sort of reverberating out in market. And that is, just kind of where it came from.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Laura.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Sharing your story. It's, especially for people who are trying to make the leap to start their own firm, it's probably been exciting to hear somebody who has made the leap and successfully doing it and building out a firm, which is all really exciting.
Well, nice to meet you, Cal, and thanks so much. I appreciate everybody listening in.
Absolutely. So, for those listening, if you learned something today or laughed or just enjoyed hearing about the trials and tribulations of another agency owner, please tell your peers about this podcast. Let's tell people this exists. We're all in this together. So let's help out fellow agency owners. So thanks again, Lauren.
Thanks, Cal.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.